Hello Tennos, Zelp here. I know it's too soon to be posting another video, but I just couldn't help it. One of the YouTuber, Мемее Саге, he posted a video talking about the Orvius and how amazing it still is, and I agree with him totally. It is still really amazing. Somewhere along his video, he mentioned that he wasn't sure how the damage came to be, although he did tell me that he has some ideas on why the damage is the way it is. But I just decided that, since I have the spreadsheet and all, why not just throw this weapon into the spreadsheet and kind of, find out where the damage is coming from and finalize, somehow give everyone some kind of closure on what the weapon is doing, right? So this is why I kind of made this video. I thought that it would be easy. I thought it would be like a 1 to 2 hour thing, but turns out it's a 3 to 4 hour thing, and I am really tired right now. It's really late, like 6 a.m. kind of late. So hopefully I could just end this and yeah, I'll see you in the comments, right? So by the way, I'll put his original video, the one that inspired me to do this, at a card link at the top of this video. Do check it out. Yeah, before I go in and talk about the weapon, I think you have to understand a little bit about its uniqueness. So I have the wiki kind of ready for you guys. Here we go. So the important thing is, okay, so this is the Orvius. Don't throw it away because apparently there's no other way of obtaining it besides doing the quest. So if you kind of lose it and you can't do the quest again, you are never gonna get it back. So yeah, don't lose it. Alright, so the important thing is, I guess over here it tells you that it will do a cold proc, which occur every time the damage occurs. Basically the ticks when it does that whole channeling thing, when it hovers above the enemy's head. So it will have a 100% cold proc. It also says that it cannot do physical status, only elemental. Now this cold proc, what I believe is that it will actually compete with any other elemental status effect that you have on your weapon. So for example, the weapon that we are using right now has corrosive. So if you have corrosive and it has cold, it's going to compete and see who will proc. Either one will proc. If it's corrosive, it won't proc cold. If it's cold, it won't proc corrosive, and basically that's what it does. And it would seem like it's 100% proc. So surely it will proc something. It's just the competition between what will proc. So if you want corrosive to have a higher chance, you're gonna have to really buff the damage on corrosive, right? And also, if you want to know how much damage is actually competing in coal, if you scroll down, you could see this part where it says the DOT is actually 150 coal damage, and upon returning it will do a blast damage of 400 damage. Alright, and I think this is the important thing that you have to take note before we go into the spreadsheet. And before I also go into the spreadsheet, I just want to show you guys a demonstration followed by the way I mod it. So this is the exact same heavy gunner that Мемее Саге uses, and I'm gonna use exactly the same thing. Now my damage is slightly higher because my prime pressure point is maxed. Yeah. Okay, so first of all, you have to have your weapon channel, and then you're gonna throw it. It's gonna hover on top of his head. It's gonna suspend him, and it's gonna do that amount of damage. Now I want you to remember that damage, but although I know it's kind of hard, we will do it again, and you're gonna see how the damage kind of tallies with what I have on the spreadsheet, right? So yeah, okay, so the next thing I'm gonna show you is how it's modded. So everything is exactly the same as his build. The only difference is I do not have a prime fury, so that is one difference, and also his prime pressure point is just one rank below mine. Yeah, so that's pretty much, yeah. Okay, now there is one thing you know what, I'm gonna talk about that in a later part of the video. So right now we're just gonna go into the spreadsheet. So this is the one that I'm using. Now the reason why I use the twin Baslock so much is because it only has heat damage, and it's so much easier to calculate damage when there is not so many other damage types in the weapon, but unfortunately for the Orvius, there is impact, there is puncher, there is slash, and of course with the corrosion build that we have on, there is corrosion as well. So all this damage is actually the damage that you see on the arsenal. Let me just show you here. Okay, so this damage over here, the 36.4, 9.1 and blah 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 is listed right over here. Okay, now this damage actually isn't the damage that we're gonna use, because these are actually just a ratio between the damage types, and that is why it is here, why it's listed. So this is the total. The ratio between impact and the total will be the impact divided by the total, and the ratio between puncher and the total will be, you know. So I actually did this before in the previous video, so I'm not gonna go too detailed on how we're gonna find the ratio. But anyways, this is the spin attack that is doing, so I'm gonna show you again. Here is, oh sorry, not the spin attack, I mean the throw attack, which is 2.516.2, right? And it's actually not a point, it's 2000, yeah. So I'm gonna change this. It's not a spin attack, it's a throw attack. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna use these information to get the ratio of my impact damage from the throw damage, right? So basically using this times with the throw damage, and you're gonna get the ratio for impact, the ratio for puncher, for slash, for corrosive. Now remember that it does cold damage, and at the end it does a blast damage. So there is a certain amount of damage for cold and blast as well. The way how I get this amount is by taking the cold damage and multiply with whatever damage multipliers that you have on. So in this case, if you look at the setup, we have Spoil Strike, which is 100% damage. We have Pressure Point, which is 165% in my case. Okay, and everything else will not actually increase the cold damage and also the blast damage that it will do at the end of the halo thing, right? So what I do is, over here is the damage multiplier. This is the prime pressure point, this itself, and this is the Spoil Strike. Okay, so we actually have a damage multiplier of 3.65, and if you go back to wiki and look at this damage, this is the cold damage, this is the blast damage, and basically take this damage, multiply with the damage multiplier, and you get this value. Now take note that this is not included into your throw ratio, or this is not the base damage that will appear over here when the weapon do normal attacks, simply because it is stated really clearly on the wiki that this damage only appears when you're doing an channeling throw. Okay, so it is already part of a throw attack, so you do not have to include in this ratio, you do not have to include it in the normal. It's not a ratio from the normal attack. Basically, that's what I'm trying to point out. Okay, so you have a total of this amount of damage. Now let's go down to the enemy. The enemy is this enemy. It has a base level of 8, clone flash 300, blah blah blah. Okay, so now we're gonna look at the modifiers. The green part I have mentioned before in my previous video. The green part is the modifiers for the health. The blue part is the modifiers for the armor, and cold just does not affect this heavy gunner at all, so it's 0. It just doesn't affect anything. So impact, it will do a negative 25%. Okay, slash is a positive 25%, puncher is a positive 50%, corrosive is a positive 75%, blast is a negative 25%, and cold just doesn't do anything, not much change, but it is still affected by the armor's damage reduction. Okay, so at level 100, which is the same level as what we were testing just now, the armor it will have is this amount, 7,300 and something. Okay, if you have a what do you call this, corrosive projection on, it will be reduced by 30%, so it will have 5.1k instead. Okay, now the whole reason why this whole part is being darkened out is because all of the slash, all of the impact, all of the puncture damage is not taking into account when you're dealing damage with the channeling troll. Now I could actually prove this. One of the reasons you could see is because just now, where is it? Okay, just now in this place, it says that physical status effect does not work. It does not proc because it does not even use the physical damage in this when you do the channeling troll. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that because there is no physical damage involved, this is one of the reasons why the Orvius does not proc physical status effects. Okay, now there is another way to test this, really simple. So I don't know if you remember the damage just now, so I'm just gonna show it to you again really quickly. Oh man, I have a feeling that this video is gonna be a really long video. So anyways, yep. Okay, so the first hit, let's just pay attention to the first hit, is about 5,000 something, right? Okay, so with that information, let's try removing Fury, since Fury doesn't actually increase the damage. So we're gonna put Buzzkill instead. Now this has majority slash damage, so having Buzzkill is gonna increase the damage by a lot. So let's see what happens when we have Buzzkill. Okay, make sure it's channeling and control. Now pay attention to the first hit. There you go, 5,000 something, and it pretty much ended the same, exactly the same way. So that damage actually does not help it at all. Even though it is a pretty good buff of damage, it doesn't help at all. So this proves that the channeling damage is not affected by physical damage, and therefore any physical damage that you do in your calculation is actually not added to the main damage basically. So this is why this whole part is being darkened out. Now it actually took me a while to figure this out, so I did find the final impact, final slash, final puncture damage, list it all out, add them together, realize that the damage doesn't make sense, and then read a lot and then try different things with, like for example with the Buzzkill, and finally realize that it doesn't work. So therefore I darkened this whole part out. Now what still works is the corrosive damage, the cold damage, and at the end there is a blast damage. So at the end it will have to include this amount of blast damage. So how do I find all this thing? Same as the spreadsheet that I did before. So this is after you include the modifiers. So it's basically damage modifier for corrosive and everything else. Okay, and this is the final damage. So the final damage is taken from this value, which is the damage that you do when you do a troll damage, and that value multiplied by the damage modifier. Okay, and you get all this damage. So this is the total of corrosive and cold. You get 683.25. Now when you are in stealth, you get a stealth multiplier of 8. So this damage here is basically your final damage, which is the damage that you're supposed to do, times with 8, which is the stealth multiplier, and you're supposed to see 5.4 thousand something the first hit. Okay, always you're gonna see this amount almost every single time your first hit. So I'm just gonna show you now. Just pay attention to the other values as well. So most likely it's gonna proc a corrosive because of the way I'm modding it. Corrosive is a lot higher than cold, so so it's gonna proc corrosive a lot. So most likely the second one is going to do damage based on after the corrosive has proc, which has an armor of only this much. Okay, and I actually did the whole entire calculation over here. So the moment the first proc, how much of the final damage it will do, when the second procs, what it'll do, the third and the fourth. Okay, so this is the armor reduction for after every single proc, and this is the damage that you should get. Yeah, the damage that you'll see. Okay, so the first one is about 5.4k, second one is about 6.8k, the next one is, if it procs of course, is gonna be about 8.5k, and the last one is a little bit special and we're gonna get there in just a minute. Okay, so I want you to pay attention to this tree, and hopefully if you could try to remember the last one as well. So I'm gonna do the demonstration again. Where is my game? There you go. Whew. So again, same enemy, stealth, make sure I'm channeling, and throw. Do you see that? Okay, 6.8, 8.4, 2.2. Okay, so it's 5.4, 6.8, 8.4, and 2.2. So what you saw is, you saw this, right? The values you see here is not accurate to the digit. One of the reasons is most likely because I used too many decimals in my calculations. So I believe the game kind of rounds it up at some point. So, but then the value that you see here is actually accurate to about plus minus 5%, which is close enough for you to understand how the mechanics of this weapon kind of work. Okay, so again, you're gonna see this as 5.4k, this is 6.8k, this one I believe we saw it at 8.4k, but it's still really close, and the next one is a 22k plus, and the reason why you see a 22k plus and not a 27, or in the screen you should see about 26.9k, the reason why is because over there it did not proc tree corrosive. Okay, one of it procced a coal, therefore the damage reduction was not reduced further, so it did not do such a high damage. Okay, so let me just show you. I think it's easier to understand in the game than just by showing numbers. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is that the last blast damage, the last explosive damage is very unique. It actually takes in its very own corrosive proc. Okay, so that's one corrosive, that's two, that's three corrosive. There you go. Do you see that? A 26.9k damage. Okay, so the reason why it gets so high is because the last blast damage, let me just get back over here. So the last blast damage takes into account its very own corrosive proc. In other words, because the sequence, or the how do I say this, the damage pattern is 4 hits, 3 ticks, and 1 explosion, right? So that is the damage pattern. So what happened was, the first time, just now before this time, the first one was a proc, the second one was a proc, the third one I believe it was a coal, and then what happened was the fourth one it procs, but then it's only within the third proc, so you see this damage. Okay, the one that we just saw basically procs the first corrosive to give this damage, procs the second corrosive together with this damage to give this damage. The third one also procs. Okay, so now you have 3 procs of corrosive, and then for the fourth one it takes into account its own corrosive, therefore it's doing this damage instead of this one. So that is the reason behind the explosion damage. That is the damage behind the ticks, and yeah, basically that's pretty much it. So I just realized that I missed out the whole explanation on the explosion damage. So over here is the explosion damage. There is a big leap, and I'm gonna explain about that. So from here you can see that the damage is actually the corrosive damage and the final cold damage, and basically multiplied by the stealth damage, which is 8 times. And after the 1 proc, the armor is being reduced, so therefore you do a slightly higher amount of damage, but again it is still the corrosive plus the coal, and then times 8, and so is the third one. But when you come to the fourth one, you have to include the final blast damage as explained in the wiki. And also something really interesting is that there is a 2 times multiplier. Now this is the only part that I am kind of fuzzy about, if this 2 times multiplier is a headshot. because if it is, well, it makes sense. If it isn't, then it might be some kind of unique thing. When the Orvius were to explode, it does this amount of damage. So I'm not really sure which is it, but I am sure that there is a 2 times multiplier. Okay, that is all for this video. I hope that you guys learned something, and the calculations for the Orvius is obvious now. Sorry about that. So yeah, it's been a while since I make a video this long, and to be honest, besides the interesting mechanics of the Orvius, where it kind of renders the enemies useless, it has a 100% proc chance, and there's this explosion at the end, I don't actually find the damage of the Orvius shocking. Okay, the reason why is because I think most people will kind of compare the damage it's doing with the normal attack damage that it does, which is over here. But what you have to keep in mind is that you are supposed to look at the damage over here when you're doing a troll attack. In other words, if you could do this as your basic normal attack, you're gonna see the damage that you do per tick with the special channeling troll attack. Yeah, you're gonna see the exact same damage, even more, simply because this time if you were to do a basic attack with this amount, you are also going to include your physical attack, which includes the slash, the puncher, and the impact, where else that channeling attack thing does not include physical attacks. So yeah, just keep that in mind. I guess that's pretty much all I want to say. Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, and also I'll see you next time. Have a pleasant day, Thanos. Bye bye.